Welcome in everyone to the first episode of the Larsonland podcast. My name is Sawyer Hill and I'm here with my co-host Dylan Bradshaw today to kick things off. If you don't know us already, we are the owners of the page Larsonland on Instagram. We're just a page that covers all things related to Kyle Larson. We cover all of his NASCAR racing to all of his dirt stuff, in the late model, the sprint car, and the midget, and anything else in between just involving Kyle. So before we get started with today's show, I'd like to give a shout out to Melissa. She has a Kyle Larson Facebook group. We're going to go ahead and leave the link to her Facebook group in the description of the YouTube version of this podcast. So if you get the chance, please check out that Facebook group. She puts a lot of effort and hard work into it. We do have a great show planned for today as we recap last week's race at Auto Club, talk some dirt late model stuff, and then we will take a look ahead to this week's race at Las Vegas. We're so glad you've joined us today. So without further ado, Dylan, let's get this thing started, man. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Excited to kickstart this podcast and excited to use this platform to further grow our Instagram page and the entire brand in general. For everyone listening out there, be sure to take it easy on us. This is our first podcast, and we're going to try to get better as the episodes go on. We appreciate the support that we've seen on Instagram as well as everyone in the Facebook groups, as Sawyer mentioned, by sharing our posts to help us grow. And with that being said, let's get into it.
Yeah, man, I agree. Let's get right into the content here. First of all, man, what a race on Sunday. I honestly don't think that we could have asked for anything better than that with the next gen car in its second race there at Auto Club. I was definitely pretty disappointed coming out of Daytona with the results there, but Kyle always seems to just put the bad ones in the rear view quickly and move right along. Um, Speaking of Daytona, Dylan, how was your first 500? You were down there a couple weeks ago. How was the experience, man?
Yeah, it was a great time, great atmosphere, just overall great race in general. Definitely recommend everyone if they have the chance to go to it. Also recommend if you go, definitely wear sunscreen because Florida heat's no joke. Definitely got burnt up pretty bad, but definitely a good time and great race.
Yeah, man, definitely one I have to check off my bucket list. Haven't been down there yet to see that one. So, moving right into Auto Club, I mean, yeah, man, what a great race. Obviously, good for us, good for the content. Kyle won and took home the first win for him in the 2022 season. His second at Auto Club in the Cup Series. It was definitely a very interesting race. I think that the cars looked good. A lot of good racing throughout, very competitive. A lot of guys shuffling it up through the field. Kyle definitely didn't have the best car throughout the entire day. Obviously, had to start from the rear. What were your thoughts when you saw Kyle had to start from the rear prior to the race?
I was obviously disappointed when it was announced, especially after I heard it was just an ignition switch issue that ended up being the cause. But I find it kind of difficult to understand the rules that NASCAR has with the pre-race part replacements. If the part is a sealed part from a vendor that the team doesn't work on, then it's considered an approved adjustment. And we saw that pre-race with Kyle Busch and his transaxle situation. However, Larson faces punishment for a NASCAR source part and a sent to the rear for a minor issue, contrary to Kyle Busch's much bigger situation and replacing entire transaxle. So, what do you think about it?
Yeah, man, I think I would definitely be a little bit more upset about it if Kyle didn't win the race, but
Yeah,
Kyle getting the win definitely smoothed that one over pretty quickly for me. But yeah, I agree, man. It does seem like a little bit of a double standard in NASCAR sometimes, and obviously we aren't the rule experts. We're not really the ones to talk about it too much. But yeah, I mean, changing a entire transaxle compared to the a faulty ignition. I mean, it seems like they should be handled differently than how they were. But you know, we'll just
sure.
take it and move right along. So, um, obviously, Kyle won the race. He came through the field very quickly. I mean, were you surprised with how quick Larson came through the field? I mean, I don't know what lap. I think it was lap 75 when he led his first lap of the race. I mean, it was just for a second, but getting up there that quick in a track like that, I think is very impressive.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I knew he would obviously make his way through from where he started in 31st due to that ignition switch issue. But I definitely didn't think it'd be as quick as it was. I think it was around lap 16 or 17 when Kyle Busch spun out, and Larson was already up to 13th from 31st. So by the time the 20th lap hit, he was already in the top 10. But I noticed he was pretty lucky that the caution came when it did because his tires were taking a ton of wear from running through the pack to get to where he was. So I think without that caution, the tire wear would have shown more and he'd start to fall back a little bit. But I also know he mentioned that he was going to stay on the bottom until Tyler Reddick in the A car tested out the top. And as the race progressed, he definitely showed to be more comfortable on the top, being that he felt faster and had a better chance of preventing anyone from passing him. And it's also, of course, less wear up top than the bottom. So,
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the big things coming into the race last weekend was a lot of the crews and the crew members just did not know what to expect coming to Auto Club with the next gen car. I mean, obviously they had already raced at the Clash and at Daytona, but they haven't really seen a 2 mile track with the next gen car yet. So I think tire wear was a bit of a question mark for the teams. And I think that Cliff Daniels and Kyle Larson found out pretty quickly on that first stop that, tire wear was going to be a big player in the race. And they definitely accounted for that as the race went on. So at Auto Club, we did see a lot of different names up near the top. I mean, we had guys up there like Eric Jones finished third, Austin Dillon finished second, and Daniel Suarez was up there mixing it up with those guys right at the end of the race. I have to ask, what driver do you think was the most surprising for you to see up there at the front this week?
I'm gonna say instead of a specific driver, I'm gonna go with a team. The two Richard Childress drivers and Reddick and Dillon, they really surprised me. We know these drivers have talent, and Reddick has continued to progress since racing in Cup full time since 2020. But some strong runs from those two. Reddick was clearly one of the fastest on Sunday. He had that stage one and stage two win before, unfortunately, blowing the tire, taking him out of contention for the win. And we saw Dylan make a good run at the end of the race, but thankfully Larson held him off, and Dylan finished the race with a second place finish.
Yeah, I think for me, I agree. I was definitely very surprised with the run by Richard Childress Racing. We don't get to see those guys up near the front that often, especially the past couple years. But who knows? The new car, we might see some different guys up there at the front battling with Larson for some of these race wins. For me personally, I think I was definitely most surprised to see Eric Jones back up there fighting, battling for position up there in the top five most of the day. I mean, I've always thought Eric's been a good driver through his days back at Joe Gibbs with in the Xfinity series, and I'm glad that he's got a chance to get up there and battle for some wins again. So all in all, just it's exciting to see different guys up there near the front.
Yep,
So
definitely.
like I said, I mean this weekend's race at Auto Club, it did not have any shortage of drama and problems. I mean, it was obviously a very good race. I enjoyed it. I hope all the other fans enjoyed it. But I think when me and you together, we were watching practice and qualifying on Saturday. I think we kind of expected things to be a little bit worse than what they actually were.
Yeah, definitely. We saw some spinouts there on, believe it was turn four. Most of the spinouts happened. We saw Ross Chastain definitely tore his car pretty good, had to get a backup. We saw Kevin Harvick, which actually they crew got the car fixed. They decided to fix the original car instead of going to the backup since they share that it would have taken them longer to, wrap and make all the adjustments for him. So with all the issues we saw in practice and qualifying, definitely thought it was going to be a not too good of a race, but ended up being one of the best races I've seen in a while.
I completely agree there, and I do think some of that stuff with like Kevin Harvick, I think we are seeing some of the impacts of the supply chain issues with NASCAR. Some of these teams opting to fix their race cars rather than using a backup car. So there were a total of 9 drivers sent to the rear start at the start of the race, including Kyle Larson and his ignition issue. And then, obviously you just talked about some of the drivers that faced crashes in practice and qualifying. But again, I want to bounce back onto Tyler Reddick and suffering that left rear tire issue, taking him out of the race, ultimately taking William Byron out of the race as well, and then of course the story that is all just right now breaking NASCAR social media is the incident between Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott. So, couple questions for you here, Dylan. Obviously, the next gen car leaves a lot to be desired from a mechanical aspect with some of the issues with the wheels and the tires we've been seeing. But what do you think about the overall product of racing we've seen through 2 weeks?
Prior to Auto Club, like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the next gen cars in general, and I didn't really expect very good racing to come with it. However, after watching the race on Sunday, I was definitely a big fan of the racing that was produced, and it turned out to be one of the best races I've seen in a while. But being that Auto Club is an old track, it makes it easier to produce a good race. So I think the true test for the next gen cars will be next week at Vegas.
Yeah, Auto Club's definitely an interesting surface, an older surface. I know that they've been talking about turning that into a half mile short track. Personally, I want to see it stay the same. I'm a guy that I hate to see change, especially with some of these tracks that, I've grown up watching. But, you know, NASCAR seems to have made some good decisions that I didn't expect, and we'll see how that goes. So, going back onto the wheels and tire issues that we have been seeing the past 2 weeks, what have you found out about that? Have you figured anything out about that?
They've definitely been a big issue, and I myself have been complaining about it a lot, as well as many others. And I think a big part of the tire failure is not having the inner liners on the tires. However, with the current setup, that would require the tires and wheels to be modified. And the low profile sidewalls bottom the car out when they're flat. So pretty much to make it simple, the rim is just too big and the tires are way too small. But there's definitely an issue with the tires filling at the rate we saw on Sunday at Auto Club. And, drivers going 3 or 4 laps down waiting for a tow because they get stuck is definitely not an optimal solution.
Yeah, that's the thing I was thinking of. We usually see guys they lose a tire and they might be able to come back and not even lose a lap, get back to pit road. But yeah, being towed back and losing multiple laps, I just think it's different. I don't think it's what NASCAR wants, but we'll see what they come up with and what they're able to change. I mean, I trust NASCAR in this. I think that it's still a learning curve with this next gen car, and I think that they'll get it figured out as the season progresses.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they proved me wrong a few times already with the next gen. Like I said, like that was definitely a great race. So definitely looking forward to seeing if they make any adjustments or improve because it's definitely a complaint with the fan base and I assume a lot of drivers and their teams. They're definitely talking about showing a lot more wear than usual and obviously the instance we have where someone spins out and they go to make a run and they just get a flat tire. So
Right, and I think, like you said, I think this week will be a better test of the next gen car at Las Vegas on a little bit of a newer surface. So, I do have to ask, I don't want to talk about it for too long. I know it's very controversial right now in the NASCAR community, but what are your thoughts on the situation between Kyle Larson and his good old buddy Chase Elliott? Do you think it'll last beyond just this week?
I definitely hope not. It's definitely a controversial topic that I definitely don't want to, go on about for too long, but my opinion, I feel like there was just a miscommunication between Larson and his spotter. Logano was holding on to the bottom side of the track. Larson was side drafting with him, and I think the spotter as well as Larson lost focus on chasing his big run. And Larson wanted to go high. Chase obviously had the big run, and Larson wanted to go before Logano got ahead. But I don't think it's a situation that was intentional by Larson, and he wouldn't intentionally try to wreck his own teammate in Elliott. But it all happened pretty quick, so it's kind of hard to tell. We saw Larson's spotter come out and take the blame, but I definitely think it's just a miscommunication and a lack of focus at the time on chasing his run. And I saw a lot of coverage from the 9 teams radio about another problem with his broken toe link that caused him to spin out. But from the race footage, someone would conclude that it looked intentional. Larson had a good, I think it was 2 to 3 second run on there on Logano prior to that caution. And it brought some competition to Larson on the restart where he was passed by Suarez for a brief amount of time, but obviously held him off to take the lead and held off Dylan to get the win. But I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on the late caution where Elliott spun out? Intentional or an unfortunate circumstance late in the race?
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching the race myself in real time, prior to that, Chase Elliott came down when Kyle was blocking or when Kyle was lapping him, and he blocked a little bit and kind of voiced his displeasure there with Kyle. And then obviously 2, 3 laps later, Chase spun out. And for me, heat of the moment, I thought Chase did it on purpose, but the Hendrick team concluded that another broken toe link for the second time of the day for the 9 car, and I don't think Chase would do something intentional like that to put a team Hendrick win in jeopardy. So, and just touching on the topic a little bit more, I mean, I understand Chase's displeasure with the whole thing, and I've been in the driver's seat before myself, and I understand, when something happens, your first instinct is to blame the other guy or to get pissed off about it, but it's a racing incident, and I think these guys will move on next week. I think Chase might keep it in the back of his head. He won't be afraid to move Larson out of the way for a win at some point later in the season, but these guys are too good of friends to let this one stick for much longer than this week. So, kind of shifting gears a little bit. Last week, the news came out. Kyle Larson and FloRacing announced that they would be promoting a dirt late model race at the Volunteer Speedway down in Tennessee on April 14th. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, Kyle raced in the late model at Volunteer Speedway last October with the Castrol FloRacing Night in America series and finished second to Superman Jonathan Davenport. It was actually a really good race. Kyle ran really good. He qualified poorly, but started in the back. I think he actually had to come through the B main in that one, worked his way up to a second place finish in that one. And like I said, now Kyle is promoting this race in April. It's just a one off event and will pay $20,000 to the winner. But the most interesting thing about this race is that it is just 3 days before the Bristol Dirt Race for the NASCAR Cup Series, and the track is less than an hour away from Bristol. So I think with this race and Kyle kind of putting it on with Flo, the guys at FloRacing, I think Kyle is kind of hoping to get some of the NASCAR guys to come out and race in a late model prior to the Cup race. I mean, for $20,000, I think some of the guys will come out there and try it. Some of the guys with dirt experience for sure, but I kind of like to see some other guys out there trying out the late model against Kyle. Dylan, who would you want to see out there against Kyle? Maybe try and race in the late model.
I'm gonna throw an odd one out there, okay? I'm gonna say William Byron because we have Bowman who's been there before. We saw Elliott take the step into the dirt scene recently, and obviously Larson, who has grown up and been surrounded with dirt racing his entire racing career. So I think it'd be cool getting Byron out there because we'd have all four Hendrick drivers participating in dirt in some capacity. So yeah, I'm gonna go with William Byron on that one.
Yeah, I think Byron would be a good one as well. I mean, yeah, like you said, the other Hendrick guys have been pretty involved with dirt over the past couple years, and you know, Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick are letting the guys go out and race whatever they want. So I mean, if it's $20,000, if I was William Byron, I'd be out there in the seat trying to make something work. I mean, even Alex Bowman, this speed Florida Speed Weeks, I mean, he was able to make both races for the World of Outlaws in the 410 sprint car, and then he went down to East Bay in the sprint and set fast time with the All Stars. So I think some of these guys can get in dirt and be a little bit more competitive than we think, but it definitely takes a lot of skill, and you know I think it'll be tough to beat Kyle in his own event. So with this event coming up on the horizon, like I said, April 14th, do you think we could see a return of an event kind of like the prelude to the Dream in the near future with Kyle Larson promoting, kind of like Tony Stewart did back in the day?
Yeah, we could very well see a return. Larson has set an example for many drivers to go out and start dirt racing because of his recent success in NASCAR and how it can translate and keep you sharp during the off season and just the overall spare time you have during the week before race weekends. Um, Tony Stewart obviously originated from the dirt scene like Larson, so I could see him playing a similar role and launching an event for drivers to come together and try something new. Who knows? We could end up seeing some drivers take on to it pretty well and translate their driving skills from asphalt to dirt to turn them into a competitive dirt racer in the future.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with that event. So, definitely some exciting things like we've talked about on the horizon for the sport of auto racing as a whole, but on the immediate horizon is this weekend's race at Las Vegas. And I don't want to get too greedy here coming off of a win, but I have to ask, do you think Kyle's going to go two in a row?
Kyle mentioned it at his post-race interview. He definitely wants to start a little streak, but we've definitely seen his success in Las Vegas last year. Opening the season up with Hendrick, he got his first win in Las Vegas, so he's definitely been there before. He knows the track. He runs well there, so it's definitely not out of the question. Be cool to get another little streak going, maybe break his streak that he had last year. So I guess we'll see this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Kyle did go on a streak a couple times last year, so I wouldn't be surprised to see it. And then, obviously, Kyle picked up his first win of the 2021 season and his first with Hendrick Motorsports last year at Las Vegas, so he's definitely shown he's capable of it at the track. So, just taking a little bit of a look at this weekend's schedule at Las Vegas, we will see the cars on Saturday out on the track for practice at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox Sports 2, and then right after that at 2:05 p.m. the cars will qualify. It's going to be single car, one lap qualifying again on Fox Sports 1. And then on Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the Pennzoil 400, the green flag will wave at roughly 3:30 p.m. So, that is all we have for you guys today. Thanks again for tuning in and listening. We will be back again next Wednesday for our next episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple, please follow our podcast so you don't miss a thing. Have a great rest of the week and enjoy the race on Sunday. We will see you in the next episode.